Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That does truly make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X. Also, remember that we are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram with the same handle. We're also on TV. Tune in at watch.kpmedia.tv and catch a moment of Zen on the Impact Live channel Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All episodes of A Moment of Zen are now available on demand. You can download the KP Media TV app on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or even Android to access all the shows. Today, we have a great one lined up for you. As usual, a mix of celebrities, impressive citizens, VIPs, and of course, tons of fun. Our guests are quite impressive. In our influencer segment, we have celebrity cosmetic and general dentist Dr. Shawn Sadri. He has been the cosmetic and general dentist of choice for some of the biggest names in professional sports for over 15 years. He is the go-to dentist for the New York Yankees, the Giants, Jets, Knicks, and Red Bulls, to name a few. Today, we are chatting about inequity in dental care amongst kids and how this leads to dental anxiety for star athletes. And on the scandals segment, we're featuring Imran Ansari of Idala Bertuna Commons, otherwise known as ABK Law, right here in New York City. We're going to be chatting about the ongoing legal issues Alec Baldwin will be facing over the next few weeks as we grapple with the defense of, I did not know the gun was loaded. Very, very sad case here. In our business and buzz segment, we have returning contributor Kyle Wool, president of wealth management at Revere Securities, joined by his good friend Vuk Jeremić, president of the Center for International Relations and Sustainable Development. He's also the editor in chief for the quarterly magazine Horizons, Journal of International Relations and Sustainable Development. They're going to be joining us to chat about the rising global inflation and how it affects our economy and the current political climate. In our innovation and tech segment, we have Philip Greenwald, founder and CEO of HighWave. Now, HighWave is a sticker that you place on your phone or your wallet, and their technology takes care of the rest. With a simple tap, you can exchange your contact details with anyone you meet, ensuring the smoothest introductions you've ever had. Well, of course, unless you've met George Clooney, because that man puts us all to shame. No need for business cards any longer. Now I want to chat Turkey Day for a brief moment. As it's been said, this year's Thanksgiving feast will wallop the wallet. Nearly every ingredient, from the turkey to the after dinner coffee, is expected to cost more for a host of reasons. This Thanksgiving could be the most expensive meal in the history of the holiday. Nearly every component of the traditional American dinner, from the disposable aluminum turkey roasting pan to the coffee and pie, will cost more this year, according to the agricultural economists, farmers, and grocery executives. Major food companies like Nestle and Procter & Gamble have already warned consumers to brace for more price increases. There is no single culprit, guys. The nation's food supply has been battered by a knotted supply chain, high transportation expenses, labor shortages, trade policies, and of course, bad weather. Inflation is also at play too. In September, the consumer price index for food was up 4.6% from a year ago. Prices for meat, poultry, fish, and eggs soared 10.5%. Even the basic materials like wooden pallets and cardboard containers that farmers need to get their crops from the field to distributors are either hard to find or much more expensive. Start piling up on food, people. Start piling up on food. Shortages everywhere and price increases. Well, that's just some food for thought. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this with celebrity dentist and influencer Dr. Shawn Sadri.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go to get your spin on. Go to get your spa on. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go for the stakes and the steak. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to a Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, up in just a few, in our influencer segment, we have celebrity cosmetic and general dentist Dr. Shawn Sadri, and you can find him at drshawn.com or on IG at Dr. Shawn Sadri. Today, we are chatting about inequity in dental care among kids and how this leads to dental anxiety for star athletes. It's all intertwined, people. Now, here are some facts. Athletes are more likely to struggle with oral health than the average American adult, according to the American Association of Orthodontists. Their study showed that 49% of athletes had untreated tooth decay, and most of them had early signs of gum inflammation, proving that professional athletes' fame and careers don't necessarily protect them from anxiety around dental care, especially if they came from poverty. For example, 17% of children from low income households have untreated cavities in primary teeth, 3 times higher than the percentage found in children from households with more financial resources. Bottom line is that a lot of individuals, especially in the brown and black communities, have not had regular access to dental care. Now, Dr. Shawn Sadri has been the cosmetic and general dentist of choice for some of the biggest names in entertainment and professional sports for over 15 years. He is the go-to dentist for the New York Yankees, Giants, Jets, Knicks, Red Bulls, NYCFC, and New Jersey Devils sports teams. Actors, musicians, reporters, journalists, and all types of patients from across the globe fly in to see him for their dental needs. He is just that popular. Dr. Shawn's accolades and his perfectionist reputation are the key draws that have allowed him to build a clientele of accomplished athletes who share similar mentalities in their approach to their sport. Welcome to the show, good doctor.
I really appreciate it.
You got it. Now let's dive right into it. And you were perfect to comment on this headliner. Recently, a Florida dentist who provides services to NBA and NFL players, so you can totally relate, said in an article on insider.com that early inequities in dental care can translate into dental anxiety in adult athletes from poor backgrounds. Now, have you seen any of this firsthand among your pro athlete clientele?
Yes, I have. If they have not had good dental care from the beginning, from childhood, they haven't had access to it, if their parents haven't pushed it or whatever their, level is, when they come into the office, they definitely have a lot of caries, a lot of cavities. To educate them more, even though they're pro athletes making a lot of money, we have to educate them more, get on the proper oral hygiene program so this doesn't happen again. And sometimes they do have anxiety, coming into the office, but we have to just educate them. And as long as we push it more, they're pretty much acceptable, and you give them some good care, and they're happy to go with it.
It's so funny you say they have some anxiety. These are pro athletes. We're talking about 400 pound muscle. And then
Right.
you say, we got to fill your tooth. And they're like, oh no, please don't. I can't even imagine the situation. It must be so funny to witness, so to speak, like in the sense that here you have this very authoritative physical entity in front of you. And yet something so simple like oral care is frightening, which is actually a real thing.
That it is a real thing. I always tell them. I mean, because they're sometimes they have, again, anxiety or they're afraid. I said, listen, you get hit harder than this on the field. So I try to push that, or on the court, but they're all pretty acceptable. But it's crazy to see that, a lot of these athletes have just, they could have better health, better health in their mouth, and, they have a lot of gum inflammation. But after coming to the office a few times, they're comfortable with me, and they're ready to go, and they get
All right. Now, you comfortable with you. They come to the office. You're talking like you just hang out and, on your couch on the weekends, which you probably do. How did you end up being a celebrity dentist? And how long have you been networking to create this kind of VIP clientele?
Yeah, so I've been doing this about 15 years now. I literally did this all myself. I just went out to, different events, and, back then, to restaurants, even nightclubs, just giving my card out. My first patient was Jose Canseco, if you remember him, MVP baseball player. It started really with him, and then it just became kind of a word of mouth thing. Had some Yankee players, some Giant players, and they just referred all their teammates. And little by little, just, excelled. I don't only do celebrities or athletes. I do all common people. I'm heavily based in cosmetics, but I do also general dentistry, anything from veneers, Invisalign, whitening, cleanings, fillings, everything, you name it. I treat all kinds of people, and it's really fun to have everyone in the office, and it's just a really fun place, make a fun atmosphere.
I'd like to have a celebrity dentist for my just basic needs. So if you are that accessible, my friend, everybody should check out Dr. Shawn Sadri. You are in the city and you have offices here in the city, so you're very, very searchable. Now, what's the most complicated situation you've had? Like, are players coming in with their teeth knocked out, or are they coming in for a whole new smile?
I mean, it's either or. I do hockey players as well, so that becomes a whole different spectrum when they get
Ooh,
hit.
yeah.
I have players who come in just for regular visits, and that could lead to a full cosmetic smile. So I do everything. I do everything. From just again.
Wow, you're multi-talented here. Okay, now this is interesting. I'd like to get your take on this. According to a report, I was just recently reading this, published by Allied Market Research, the global cosmetic industry market was estimated at about 15 billion with a B in 2020, and is expected to hit 25 billion by 2030, approximately. Now, a rise in prevalence of dental disease, along with increase in geriatric population, technological advancements in the cosmetic industry, and of course surge in demand for the same drive the growth of the global cosmetic dentistry market has right now. Do you consider yourself a tech savvy doctor, or are you about like the latest technologies, or kind of do you keep it basic?
No, definitely delays technology. I mean, dentistry has even gone to, oral scanners, which I just purchased a top of line oral scanner to take even digital impressions now. Dentistry is very technology based. You have to be up to date on all the new things coming out to be advanced and up to par in the latest technology, definitely to give yourself your patients the best needs.
I love to see that in young doctors. I don't know about my listeners out there. Some of them might be older, some of them younger, but I'm a millennial mom, and I like to walk into my doctor's office and I like to see state of the art. I don't like old school doctors, that are fossils from the year before Christ,
Right.
so to speak, which is the truth. You walk in, and yeah, you have a seasoned guy who's just refusing to
That's
study up and brush up on the technology. That doesn't work for me. So I'm glad you said that. Now, you're an influencer of sorts. How did this come about on social media? I mean, sure, you have your celebrity clientele, but is that one hand that feeds the other, so to speak?
I mean, I think it's nice. I have all these, well-known patients, but also I think, I posted on my social media, and it just shows that, if this dentist is good enough for so and so, or this athlete, or for this celebrity, then he should be good enough for me. And that's what we're trying to say. Again, I have all these high-end clientele come in, which is great, and well-known people, but I'm trying to show everyone that, I am a great dentist. We offer great service. It is a top-of-line office on 550 Madison. So this is kind of the service and dental work you receive from us is up there. It's one of the best.
I love it. I love it. You know what? Unfortunately, in this world, everything that glitters is gold to the average consumer, and it's a sad mentality. But the truth of the matter is that people do judge a book by its cover. So I love it that your color is full of glitterati and a lot of poise and a lot of credibility, because that definitely makes somebody like myself, who takes pride in the way I look and wants, of course, the best care and cutting edge technology out there for my health. I take that very seriously. Now we have a minute and a half left. If you could pick a different career, and I know you're going to say, no, this is what I love to do, I would never pick anything else. I get it. But other than dentistry, what would you be? Because you seem to be in the spotlight a lot.
Honestly, there's so many tough things. There's some things I would like to do. Obviously, it's very fun to, be able to work with these athletes and celebrities. So I would think I would do something entertainment, whether if it's, working with some kind of organization, or maybe being public relations, someone's publicist. I think that's a lot of fun, and I'm also helping someone's career, or maybe someone's organization, sport team, or something like that. I think I would do something like that in that end.
There you go. I love it. In the public eye, which is where you belong, and you've incorporated the best of both worlds. All right, well, let's do some quick dental jokes. When is the best time for a dentist appointment?
When is the best time for a dentist appointment? In my opinion, in the timeline, I guess in the morning.
No, 2:30.
That's a good one.
What did the dentist say to Tiger Woods?
Dentist say Tiger Woods hit the ball farther. I don't know.
No, you have a hole in one.
I should know these things, and I don't know. I don't know any dental jokes.
I'm just teasing you. It was so much fun having you on. We've run out of
so
time.
much.
But it was really fun talking to you. You're awesome. Okay, guys, listen, definitely check out Dr. Shawn Sadri. That's Dr. Shawn with a W. He's all over IG. Check out his page, drshawn.com, his website. Pretty cool stuff there. And of course, make sure to tune back in just a little bit. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Aikido Pharma, an early-stage pharmaceutical company developing innovative drugs for improving anti-cancer and antiviral therapies. Traded on the NASDAQ under ticker AIKI. They have first-in-class partnerships with leading medical universities like the University of Maryland and the University of Texas. To learn more, go to www.aikidopharma.com.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our Business and Buzz segment, we have Kyle Wool. He's president of wealth management at Revere Securities, joined by his good friend Vuk Jeremić, who's president of the Center for International Relations and Sustainable Development, which is a global public policy think tank. And he's also editor-in-chief of the quarterly magazine Horizons, Journal of Internal Relations and Sustainable Development. Now, Vuk served as Serbia's Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2007 to 2012. Quite impressive. They're going to be joining us in just a few to chat about the rising global inflation and how it affects our economy and political climate. Now, Americans are likely to face higher prices on everything from gasoline to groceries well into next year, threatening to turn a simmering economic issue into a major political one. The rapid reopening of the economy this summer led to massive price hikes for travel services, used cars, and other goods that were initially dismissed as fleeting phenomena. But the inflation spike now appears to be on track to persist deep into 2022, when midterm elections will determine who controls Congress, as clogged supply chains, labor shortages, and unabated consumer demand push costs even higher. We're going to see how that plays out. And this rising inflation is triggering anxiety around the world as a surge in demand following the easing of COVID-19 lockdowns has been confronted by supply bottlenecks and rising prices of energy and raw material. It's craziness across the board. The sharpest consumer price increases in many countries have evoked different responses from central banks. More than a dozen have raised interest rates, but the two that haven't are those that loom largest over the global economy: the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank. Their differing responses reflect differences in views about whether the pickup in prices will feed further cycles of inflation or will instead fizzle out. For one, this is for certain: whichever view is right will do much to shape the trajectory of the global economy over the next few years. But I am no expert. Let's figure it all out together with Kyle and Vuk Jeremić. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hello.
Kyle, welcome back. Vuk, pleasure to have you today, and I'm going to dive right in. Kyle, I'm going to start with you. Price rises began to accelerate worldwide back in March, taking inflation rates higher than most central bankers had ever expected. By August, the annual rate of inflation in the group of 20 largest economies, which accounts for about 4/5 of the world's output, had risen to a decade high. And everywhere else, governments are resorting to measures that were common during the 1970s, but have since been set aside in most countries. On Wednesday, case in point, Argentina's Interior Commerce Secretary Roberto Filetti announced a 90-day price freeze on approximately 1,300 goods in stores amid concerns about rising food prices. Craziness around the globe, Kyle. Clearly, Joe Biden and his camp are not the most seasoned business savviest of our administrations that half of America banked on. Where have they gone wrong here, or haven't they?
Well, ever since the COVID-19 crisis, I think at the end of the day, we have to really look at the fiscal policy. We're continuing to print money. We're continuing to give people money to stay at home. And we're continuing not to force people back into the labor force, which is very problematic. When you continue to add more money into the money supply, you create inflation. It's basically economics 101. What we need to do is we need to have some serious, tough conversations with ourselves and say, do we really need a $3.5 trillion spending plan on top of all the capital that we've already put in? Or do we need to think about more prudent ways to spend our money and have the Fed to begin to start to taper, let alone end this monetary policy that we've had really since the beginning of COVID of just printing money and continuing to add money into the supply?
I agree. I mean, the definition of insanity is doing something over and over again and expecting different results. And this feels quite insane. Vuk, we all know that inflation is the mother of big political change. I remember, I don't remember, but I remember reading that the great inflations of the 1970s were quite the headliner. Neither Democrats or Republicans could sit out the demand for reform back then. And the inflationary crisis imploded a large government establishment occupied with trying to fix the supply and price of air travel, truck transport, rail services, and consumer energy supplies. It basically imploded a tax system that was found to be constantly promoting people into higher brackets, even as their actual income and living standards declined. And in all, quite a revolution in government's role in the economy began under Jimmy Carter and continued under Ronald Reagan, and was echoed basically around the Western world. Is this a repeat of that era? Because it kind of feels like so.
Well, my background is really foreign affairs. As a former president of the United Nations General Assembly, I spend more time looking at geopolitics than economy. But one thing that is in common to geopolitics and the economy is that both come in cycles. In economy, they're easier to spot, they're easier to quantify, and they tend to last shorter. But just like in economy, in geopolitics, there are cycles. There are cycles of boom and there are cycles of bust. But in geopolitics, they tend to last longer. Well, right now we are in a geopolitical recession around the world. And I'm afraid that this geopolitical recession is with us to stay for a while. We're basically diving deep into a Cold War, into a new Cold War, this time between the United States and China. But unlike the previous Cold War, to which you referred to, because this time, 70s was during the first Cold War, the two leading actors in the Cold War, the Soviet Union and the United States, did not have intertwined economies. But this time around, there is a deep intertwining between not just the US and Chinese economy, but the global economy. So the fact that we seem to observe deterioration of diplomatic relations around the world, and in particular between the United States and China, gives one cause for a pause in reflection on how is that going to affect, for instance, the US market.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's all intertwined, and the bigger picture here is that it's a cause and effect. It's a ripple effect, and everything kind of breeds right out of here, the United States of America. I mean, Kyle, listen, for the past several months, the conventional wisdom has been that recent price spikes were a function of pandemic-related supply chain disruptions that should soon be resolved, right? So everything comes down to what that soon turns out to mean. Where do you see us headed under the current circumstances, and how does one turn this ship around, in your opinion?
Well, I think for the supply chain, that's a conversation on its own. And I've been talking about this for the last few months on A Moment of Xen for our weekly and monthly listeners, is we've had major disruption in the Taiwan and South Korean chip market. And the chip market is not what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago when it was all about Dell computers and Apple computers, or even 10 years ago when it was about iPads and iPhones. The chip market is much more diversified now. It goes into every single car. I don't know if you have a Tesla or BMW or Mercedes or Ford or GM. Every one of these cars has a multitude of chips in it. So when you're talking about the supply chain, it is highly intertwined between ourselves, East Asia, and also how that does affect China. Because let's face it, even Taiwan Semiconductor, they still have plants in mainland China. So whether it's like what Vuk just mentioned, the 1970s, the Soviet Union, or our intertwined Cold War right now with the supply chain disruptions, but with also China not letting a lot of these Chinese companies access the US capital markets. The answer is then, I don't quite have the answer for you, but I do think we need to stop spending money like we can print it more than we have every single month. I think that's a big issue. And I think if we can get a little more fiscally responsible, I think that'll begin to help the problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just feel like under the current administration, we were a far cry from that. I mean, Vuk, until we get there, and this might not be your per se area of expertise, but globally, I mean, politicians and especially the Democrats who control the White House on both houses of Congress will need to adjust to this, to the precarious politics of an inflationary economy. Well, that's a fact. It's been a long time since anyone has needed to do that. And an inflationary economy could well favor the Republicans here, who have been historically historically more comfortable with emphasizing supply side issues. Now, inflation has become a problem for the first time, like I said, since the Carter administration. High inflation continued into the first year or so of the Reagan era, but then it ended and hasn't been a real major economic factor since. How is this basically, the rest of the world is currently being affected by our current administration's either over inflating here or mishandling of the economy? How does that affect our position of power within the rest of the world, in your opinion?
Well, in general, what is currently politically going on in the United States is very, very closely watched by everybody else. And I am not sure if after the next year elections, we're going to have the same majorities on the Hill, the ones that we have right now. But as we approach the next year's election, I think that it'll make, unfortunately, in my opinion, for a fruitful politics, for a good politics, to sharpen the stance globally, and in particular with regards to China. And there will be consequences. And to what Kyle said with regard to the supply chains, and in particular the supply chains in East Asia, I think are going to suffer. And then I think that the US companies will have to make their stance on where the situation is going, not just with regard to pure market parameters like, I don't know what is going to be the debt and inflation and all that, but basically whether or not those companies, and some of which are very, very powerful, some of which are so powerful that they're being compared to the state, and especially the big tech companies, they'll have to make their choice as to whether or not they're going to totally diversify or they're going, to decouple. Are they going to decouple from the risky territory, and in particular China? There are right now about 10% of companies in America that don't have a business case in China. They can't do business there because of regulation. It's related to national security. They're basically abandoning the market. But about 90% of the companies, for the time being, they're either standing still, staying put, seeing what is going to happen, just observing what's happening. And there are some of them which are currently expanding their operations in China because China is like too big a market for them to abandon. So if this stays the case, then I expect that there'll be political pressure from the big companies on the American government not to be so hawkish the way it is right now.
It's amazing that you're tying it all together, because it almost feels like a game of chess. I almost feel like we've put ourselves in this position. We've elected officials, in my opinion, that could be doing a much better job on the foreign policy side and even on the economic side. But I almost feel like this game of cat and mouse is going to end poorly unless like you said, they turn the ship around rather quickly and start to really kind of look at the ripple effect and the cause and effect, because you have a population right now that's just out there spending with no end in sight, where there's a lot of money available, and yet, the higher the rise, the greater the fall. At some point, it's going to even out, and we're all going to feel the pressure. Kyle, we have about a minute and a half left. On the investment side at Revere Securities, you're president of wealth management. How has this affected overall business? Has this, would you say, from the big tech and big farm, has this, increased their appetite for investment, or are they holding back?
Well, let's really dive down into what people are talking about right now in the markets. Excuse me. It's really, investments are doing well. You have large cap tech heading higher. Tesla just broke $1 trillion market cap yesterday. But the real smart money is looking at the fixed income market. And that's where the inflation's coming in. You're seeing the 10-year move up every single day. You're seeing the yields come down every single day. The 10-year is the biggest indicator of inflation in the marketplace. At some point, you're going to have a reckoning between the S&P 500's returns and what's going to happen with the 10-year. So as the 10-year continue to move higher and yields continue, as yields continue to move higher and price continues to go lower, we're going to have to really take a hard look at the risk to reward ratio compared to some of these investments. Because if we go back to 2005, 2006, and you're getting 5 or 6% on your money, it's a much different scenario than the last 3 years when you're getting zero on your money in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you make so much sense. Totally. Well, listen, guys, it's been a pleasure talking with you. We ran through our 14 minutes rather quickly because this has been a great conversation. Vuk, thank you so much for taking the time to pipe in this morning here on the East Coast, and we're going to be airing later on today at 9 p.m. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Zen. Thank you,
Ciao.
Vuk.
Ciao.
It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. That was Kyle Wool, president of wealth management at Revere Securities, and Vuk Jeremić, president of the Center for International Relations and Sustainable Development, which is a global public policy think tank. And he's also the editor-in-chief of quarterly magazine Horizons. You're listening to Zen Sams right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
The options and recommendations expressed by Kyle Wool are his and his alone and may not represent Revere Securities as a whole. A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Now, up in just a few, we have the Scandals segment with Imran Ansari of Idala Bertuna Commons, otherwise known as ABK Law, right here in New York City. We're going to be chatting about the ongoing legal issues Alec Baldwin will be facing over the next few weeks. Okay, so Alec Baldwin didn't know the gun was loaded. He pulled the trigger of a prop gun while filming on set for the film Rust. Next thing you know, the film's cinematographer, Halyna Hutchins, is dead, and the film's director, Joel Souza, wounded. Proper compliance with safety issues or lack thereof on this set will be a large general question that will be asked in the weeks to come. That will have a huge impact on any potential legal matters that may arise from this case. According to experts on the worst side of the scale, he could have potential criminal issues that would range from criminal negligence to intentional acts that may have caused this tragedy. Could Baldwin be criminally prosecuted? You bet he could. New Mexico criminal statutes provide that involuntary manslaughter is a fourth-degree felony. Involuntary manslaughter consists of manslaughter in the commission of a lawful act which might produce death without due caution and circumspection. And conviction of involuntary manslaughter is punishable by up to 18 months in prison and up to $5,000 in fees. And come to think of it, that may be his best case scenario. Now, defenses are that the death was an accident and the person was not acting in a reckless manner or with criminal negligence. It's a tough one. But here to break it all down is legal expert Imran Ansari. Welcome back to the Scandals segment. And what a scandal this is, Imran.
Great to be back, Sen. And yes, Hollywood is reeling. The nation is reeling at this accident. But was it an accident or was it negligence? And I think that is the big question before us, and whether that negligence has risen to the level of criminal culpability. As you stated, Zen, the investigation by law enforcement is underway, and there's a lot of question marks here. But I think that there is going to be a legal avalanche following this incident, whether that be rising to the level of those criminal charges that you just discussed, or tons of lawsuits that come out through the family of Halyna Hutchins, and also Joel Souza himself, who was also wounded in this incident.
Exactly. And it's true that Alec Baldwin has the defense, though, that assistant director Dave Halls handed him the prop gun and told him it was a quote unquote cold gun, what we call in a movie set when the gun is not loaded with live rounds. But Dave Halls worked for the production company, Imran, which Alec Baldwin controlled as an executive producer. And this is key. Alec was not just hired talent on this film set. He was one of the bosses on set. And is this going to play into the severity of the legal implications? You tell me.
Right. So you hear about the trickle down effect. Well, in law, sometimes it's the trickle up effect. And those who are in the position of making critical decisions about, say, here, a production, and that was Alec Baldwin as the producer of this shoot, it could trickle up to him, because if he cut corners, or his production company cut corners in the making of this film, and we do know that the armor on set was not experienced, and if those cutting corners to save a buck led to making certain decisions or omissions in regards to this gun, with live ammo being on set, with the gun not being checked, with Dave Halls, the assistant director, telling Alec Baldwin it was a cold gun. Well, was that gun checked properly? Well, that could have the trickle up effect, Xen, and Alec Baldwin and his production company and this production and those who made the critical decisions may be held responsible.
This is such a travesty. And now that you're framing it out like that, I mean, look, Alec has much to answer for about whether he knew he was operating in an unsafe environment. I mean, he was executive producer of the film and in charge of the set. And then you have the union film crew that apparently, like you said, walked off the set after complaining to the production company about payment and housing. Then Alec Baldwin employed non-union labor to replace them. And yes, Imran, the question is, to the extent that Alec Baldwin authorized the employment of incompetent labor who basically failed to follow safety protocols, he faces serious liability, I would say, meaning if the crew cut safety corners, Alec should be responsible.
Yeah, Xen, let's put the criminal charges that may be out there aside, because I think it's more likely that we're going to be seeing the civil lawsuits, as I mentioned. And yes, those lawsuits are going to be targeting the production company, those who made the decisions like Alec Baldwin. And if it is established that those corners were cut, and we do know that people walked off set, people were had problems with the safety on set. We know that there may be some corners cut regarding a prop master and the role of armor being combined within this inexperienced armorer. And, you know, if that's established that those decisions led to this tragedy, well, you know what? Then there's going to be liability, and those lawsuits most likely will be seeking big money and compensation for the tragedy, for the family of Helena Hutchins, and also Joel Souza, who has a possible claim because he was also injured in this incident.
Yeah, this is so tragic. I mean, I've worked on so many film sets, and my husband is the CEO of Romulus Entertainment. You know him very well. So this is not, you know, we've had guns on film sets in the past, and this is just so tragic. But apparently, less than a week before the incident, a stunt double had fired 2 accidental prop gun discharges after being told that the gun was cold. Right. So won't prosecutors argue that this put Baldwin on notice that there were gun safety issues on the set?
Yes, and you stole the word right out of my mouth, notice. And notice is a really important concept in the law, whether it be something that may be the sort of foundation of a criminal negligence charge in the criminal sphere, but also notice in the civil sphere of law. And that's the lawsuits. Those are the wrongful death lawsuits that may occur from this, and the personal injury lawsuits. And notice is a big thing. Were you on notice that there was an unsafe condition on set with these guns and the way were being handled? And even if you had that notice, or should have had that notice, did you not remedy the situation or take action to make sure that the set was safe, and also those firearms were treated in a safe manner? And if that notice is established, then yes, there could be great legal ramifications for Alec Baldwin as producer, the production company, and all the other individuals on set who may have had the role in not safeguarding these firearms or handling them properly.
That's insanity. It's just plain insanity what is happening here. I mean, prosecutors are going to want to go into the safety procedures that should have been enforced, such as how live ammunition got on the set and who inspected the gun before it was handed to Alec. But what about other factors that the jury may consider, right? Helena Hutchins was a highly respected cinematographer. She was 42, married, and the mother of a 9-year-old son. Obviously, these factors are going to weigh heavily upon the jury's deliberations, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. If it ever gets to that point, Xen, that is before a jury, then the jury in a civil case will have to be considering all these factors. You know, was there notice, as we discussed, who handled the gun and who had the responsibility to make sure that that set was safe and that those firearms were safeguarded? Those are all going to be things that the jury would consider in a civil lawsuit to find whether the negligence was there,
Right.
who was at fault, who was negligent and who would be liable, and ultimately award compensation to the families and also possibly Souza himself. Then on a criminal side, the jury would be considering criminal culpability and whether it rose to criminal negligence and whether the actions are sufficient to rise to those criminal charges that may be out there. We don't know. The investigation continues.
Yeah, I mean, look, his civil liability to the Hutchins family would seem to be a slam dunk. Yet, here's the interesting part. New Mexico is the Wild West. It's legal for most adults to openly carry guns in public without a license. Licensure is only required for a concealed loaded gun. Violate the law, and it's a petty misdemeanor, the legal equivalent of a slap on the wrist. What's your take on this?
Well, those are the gun laws of New Mexico, right? And this is in a different context somewhat, Xen, because this was a confined area with a certain purpose. This was a film shoot. These firearms were not being used, say, for target practice, for hunting, that would put themselves in the sort of category of the New Mexico gun laws. These were specifically being used on set. I don't think that there should have been any live ammunition on set. I don't know how that round may have found its way in that gun and how it found its way in that gun and why it was not properly taken care of or omitted off set. But we are under this sort of area of law which will be looking at the particular circumstances here on set. And, listen, we're saying, what is Alec Baldwin liable? We don't know yet. The investigation continues. But like I said, the people who were in charge of and making the decisions on that set, whether it be the producers and that on the upper level, there tends to be the trickle up effect. And if you didn't make the right decisions, if you cut corners and that led to this accident, this incident, this death, well, you know what? There's going to be legal ramifications for it.
Yeah, it's so tragic. I can't even compose myself with an end out in this one because I get overwhelmed just putting myself in that position of I mean, I can't even imagine what it was like. It must have been a nightmare for these poor people that were working on that film set. But I've been handed guns in my career for lots of scenes, scene combat and whatnot. And one of the important questions of whether it's negligent in even such circumstances to point a gun. I mean, even if unloaded towards another human being, I mean, I always assume the risk that the gun is loaded. So I would check if somebody hands me a gun. But in this case, nobody checked, not Baldwin and no one else. And that's where, I think there was the tragedy that unfolded. But we're out of time, Imran, and I love talking with you. So please come back next week, actually, and maybe we can fill in the gaps a little bit further as this case continues to evolve.
Absolutely, Xen. Let's do it. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Guys, that's Imran Ansari, partner at ABK Law right here in the city, legal expert, all of the above. He's the guy you need to talk to when things hit the fan. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this. That was our scandal segment.
If you've missed out dining in New York City for the past year, it's time to visit the legendary Vice Cucina. Located in the heart of Midtown, Vice specializes in blending delicious Northern Italian and American cuisine with dishes such as the incredible taglione lobster, ravioli masala, ossobuco, and pappardelle al telefono, along with many other mouthwatering offerings. You deserve a great night out. Call Vice Cucina 212-757-2600 or online at vicecucina.com.
Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Now, up in just a few in our innovation and tech segment, we have Philip Greenwald, founder and CEO of HighWave. Prior to that, he was the Associate Director of Technology at Harvard Innovation Labs, iLab, where he served as the official lead advisor to more than 75 technology startups. He also built the iLab's augmented virtual reality studio. He founded Code Undercover, the world's first coding school in which students learn to code by building their own product idea. And now he brings us his latest, HighWave. So what is HighWave? Well, it basically makes it easier than ever to stay connected. By placing their sticker on the back of your phone or wallet, you can exchange any of your contact information with just a tap. Whether you're meeting someone at a business conference or making a new friend at a bar, You just hold out your phone and let the other person tap your sticker. Your profile will open in their web browser, and then the other person doesn't even need an app or sticker of their own. Basically, this revamps the way you exchange information. So whether you're sharing your website and Instagram or just your name and number, you don't have to stress or carry 300 business cards to your next event. Also, HighWave is cost effective, efficient, and it's a very eloquent way to network in a digital age. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm all about digital transformation. They're all over social media. You can check out their website, highwave.co, or on the gram at highwave.co. I love to profile great new products, and this seemed right up my alley. Welcome to the show, Philip. We meet again.
Yeah, that was a chance encounter that first time.
It was. So I met Philip last month at the Friars Club right here in New York City at a charity event I threw for Orphan Myth. And Philip over here bid for an on-air interview at the silent auction. And of course, all proceeds went to the organization. But how fitting is it that you have a product that lends itself perfectly for this innovation in tech feature? So let's dive in because I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Tell me what inspired this idea.
So all my professional life, I've been trying to, it's all been about helping people connect, helping them connect authentically in the real world. When I was at Harvard, it was helping students connect with other students, whether that meant finding a co-founder for a company or connecting with professors or just connecting with people. That's been my job my whole life. And a few years ago, it's funny, our mission statement, which is the making it as awesome and effortless as possible to connect in the real world. It sounds like it's a response to COVID, but we've actually been saying the same thing since before COVID. But our whole goal is to get people to really connect authentically. And the first way we're doing that is, as you mentioned, with our HighWave stickers. It's as you said, not to repeat you, a little sticker that you place on your phone. Other people touch their phone to yours. They instantly get your contact info.
Safe, so to speak, in an era where everyone's afraid of sharing their information or their information getting stolen. How does your product make people feel comfortable?
Oh, I got to watch the professor in me because I just want to go on a 1-hour lecture as to some cybersecurity principles and all that. Because the short answer is yes, this is very safe. So no information is actually on the sticker. All that's on this that's encoded into the sticker is a URL with a unique identifier. So if you lose the sticker, you can turn it off essentially. Think of a business card. If you lose your stack of business cards, then there's a 1,000 pieces of paper somewhere that have your name, maybe your office address, your phone number, email, all that. With this, you just turn it off. You have to get very close to. We're always asked, if I have my phone in my pocket, could somebody come and touch their phone in my pocket? And the answer is essentially no. You have to get really up close and personal, and the barrier of your pocket wouldn't work anyway. So we built this whole thing with safety in mind. The whole idea is that it's just an easier way to exchange contact information.
So you could share as much or as little as you want, basically.
Oh, absolutely. So our only requirement is that you share something. If you're really private, it could be your email, it could be your phone number. If if you're like me, you've got your Instagram on there, you've got your TikTok, your LinkedIn, your phone number, your email, and it can sync to your phone's native contacts as well. So when you scan someone's sticker, it's not like you have to just be within the app. It can go into your phone's contacts as well.
Got it. So there's an app that you download, and then that app directly correlates to the sticker. Now, is your product for businesses or individuals?
And so just to be clear on that, we require an app to set up your own sticker. No one else in the world needs an app or a sticker of their own. If you're the only person with a sticker, other people, as long as they have, a relatively recent iPhone or basically any Android phone, they can touch their phone to yours without downloading anything or having a sticker of their own.
That's pretty proprietary and unique. So this app works on all phones, right?
It works on most phones. There's so many different models of Android that it's hard to say it works on all of them. Basically, if it has the technology on the phone, the hardware, which is not our hardware, it's something called NFC technology. It's been around for at least a decade, maybe a a little longer than
Right.
that.
So it works on most smartphones, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
Any
Now,
iPhone after the X.
got it.
Essentially.
Now, how long do the high wave stickers last? I mean, I can't imagine a sticker lasting that long on a phone because there's a lot of use. You hold it.
Right. Well, this actually ties perfectly into the last question you asked, which I'm sorry I didn't get to, which is it for businesses or is it for personal? And the answer is it's for both. If you put your logo on it, it's for businesses. We actually give these out for free to individuals. They are our goal is to help people connect, and we don't consider ourselves a business card company. But if you're a business and you want to put your logo on it, that's where we come in. But if you're a consumer, it's free. And to tie that all back in, I'm sorry, I forgot your most recent question, but I was tying it back into the personal.
I know.
business thing.
I simply wanted to know the use of the stickers. I mean, what happens if the sticker like
Oh,
unsticks?
that's right. Right. So they're free. So this hasn't really been an issue. In theory, a sticker lasts up to 20 years. That's not going to happen, right? You're going to exchange phones. You're going to get a new case. They are pretty waterproof. We actually have, we tested these by putting them into jars of water for weeks, and you can still scan them. But realistically, that's why we make them free. So if they fall off your phone, you can just order a new one. With the ones with that have logos on them, they actually beat the cost of a business card so many times that you can, in theory, one works for somebody until they get a new phone. But even let's say they lose their phone or something like that, the cost is still cheaper than a business card.
That's awesome. So this is so unique because I was just saying this the other day. I have to find a way where I don't necessarily want to carry business cards. I don't want to sit there at a party and it's loud. You can't hear somebody. What's your email? Was that an X? Was that an S? There's a lot of back and forth. This is easy. You just stick your phone out, and you share your information, and you can customize the info you share, which I love. This is pretty unique. So you are now selling this. I guess people could go on the website, and whether you're a business or an individual, you can get one of these stickers. You're giving them away free to individuals, but businesses, of course, is a different ballgame.
You got it. And what's very important is people think, oh, it's free, we must be selling data. I'm saying it now. We do not sell your data. That's not this was built in response to the sketchiness that social networks were doing. We're not a data company. That's not our thing. We're giving these out for free because we're all about connecting people.
Got it.
And then, like you said, we make money on the business side.
Of course. You have to find a way to make money. You give away a little. It's all about the balance, and then you get some in return. I love it. Philip, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. This was such a great idea. I loved having you on, and I love this innovation.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
You got it. Guys, that was Philip Greenwald. You guys definitely have to check out this company. You can check them out on the gram or visit their website at highwave.co, or on Instagram at highwave.co. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Well, that's a wrap, my friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. or go to 710WOR.iheart.com/A Moment of Zen. And remember, we're now on TV. Download the KP Media TV app on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Android TV. Or you can tune in at watch.kpmedia.tv and catch A Moment of Zen on the Impact Live channel Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All episodes of A Moment of Zen are now available on demand. Thank you for listening. It has been an absolute pleasure being your host. Remember to tune back in next Saturday night at 9 p.m. Thanks again to all of our sponsors. And remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.